looking at carbon footprint, specifically for the built environments and not individuals and flights and everything, we take into account the type of dwelling or the building, which includes the size of it and construction and design of it, and where it's located, and that's obviously going to determine the transport emissions associated with it. And then looking at the infrastructure that's servicing it, and as Colin rightly said, there's a lot of inefficiencies associated with our current infrastructure. So I'll quickly be comparing suburban living with the inner city. This slide probably speaks for itself, as Pete said, but our suburban kind of sprawl at the moment is very resource intensive. We have increasingly larger houses. They've already doubled in size since the 1950s, and they're increasingly being occupied by fewer people. And so obviously they have much larger spaces to heat and cool, additional appliances, filling up all those rooms, all consuming energy. They're not very thermally efficient because they're all single detached houses. And they consume a lot of other resources like water, which again takes energy, especially if it's coming from desalination plants. And they're obviously, well not obviously, a lot of them are very car dependent as well, and there's a lot of emissions associated with that. So comparing that to inner city living, and that's the view from my balcony. I'm only on the 4th floor, so I think it's a pretty good view. So I live in Johnson Court, which is, I guess when most people think of it, when I think of density, they think of this and probably detest the idea of density. It's not a particularly attractive building, and it probably doesn't sit in with the surroundings very well because the surroundings are so low density. But that can definitely change. And tonight I just want to say, to provide some positive attributes to it, and there is a lot going for it. I love living there, I have to say. So looking at the type of dwelling, first and foremost, it's a small apartment. I live there on my own. I don't have a family. I do have a family there in Melbourne, but I don't need a lot of space, and it's perfect for me. It's a little 2-bedroom apartment. I obviously don't need much heating and cooling to provide for that space. I actually don't have any heating and cooling. It's got a great natural ventilation. If I open my front door on my balcony, there's a very strong wind that blows through. And thermally efficient apartment blocks, I guess, are always. It's probably actually not so much in Australia, but when I lived in Europe, where it does actually get very cold, I often found that I didn't even need to heat my apartment because the apartments above and beside me were having enough energy to support my needs. And it can reduce the material consumption of furniture, etc. I don't have a big space to fill. If I did, I probably would fill it, so it's a good thing. And the biggest thing for me is really the location. Obviously that's going to reduce my transport emissions. So I've got the train station's 2 minutes away. My work, CUSP here, is about a 7-minute walk or a 3-minute bike ride. I usually bike ride because time is of the essence. It doesn't stop me from being late. I've got supermarkets and cafes and restaurants and everything right at my doorstep, and it's just perfect. I've got my gym, the Fremantle Leisure Centre, which is also seems to be the social hub. I bump into Brad there all the time, and a lot of other people. And South Beach I rode there yesterday, 7 minutes. So I've got everything literally within a 10-minute range from me, and it's just perfect. I can't stress, if anyone hasn't lived in a city, it's just fantastic. And obviously that's cutting out absolutely my transport emissions. I walk and ride, or I catch public transport if I need to go to Curtin or into the city. And I acknowledge that I am one of the lucky few because we don't have many opportunities to live in our inner city, especially at an affordable price. And I guess because I do live in the older building, and I'd love more people to have that opportunity. So I really am advocating for increasing the amount of residences in there. And I should also note, walking from here to my house at night, and I'm living in the inner city, it's dead. Like there's a ghost town at night. I'd love to see more activity happening there. So quickly going to the infrastructure. Like Colin was saying, this building where I live is perfect opportunity to put in this tri-generation and other sorts of technologies. We had Josh Byrne talking this morning about water schemes. That's again an efficient kind of way of using and recycling water, again to do at a larger scale, renewables. So just summing up why I love living where I live. I've got a very small carbon footprint, which is essential, especially because I'm coordinating this decarbonising cities and regions course. The amenity, I've probably stressed that enough, is fantastic. And the affordability, not only is the rent very affordable, but I have very low bills, obviously, because I don't consume much energy, and very low transport costs. And summarising for everyone's key points, we obviously know the public transport needs density, cone trigeneration needed, the building's more thermally efficient with it, it can reduce demand for resources such as land and water and energy, increases productivity, improves health. And I have to say, I'm probably the fittest I've ever been as well. I literally do walk and cycle everywhere, it's fantastic. And just one more time, it adds amenity and livability. And I haven't had a chance to show it yet. This is in Stockholm. I was there in June, and I just saw this and I thought it was fantastic because so many people talk about the heat island effect when you think density and big concrete buildings. And I thought, isn't that fantastic? There's trees almost getting to the top of the fourth story and providing shade, and it would look like you're living in a tree house. And who doesn't want to live in a tree house?